Okay. So in today's session, like in yesterday's session, what we did, like we just had an introduction over the SAP and the ERP and then the ABAP programming style and what are all the contents in the or the modules in SAP. And then we also discussed about a couple of points regarding the third-party softwares which have been integrated with SAP and also like what we do with those third-party softwares. And also we also had an detailed um, introduction about the ERPs and also like ERP companies which are lying in the market and how exactly SAP was competing with them. And also regarding the system architecture, three-tier architecture, about the work process and also like dialogue work process and then other work processes which are there in the system level. So all these topics we discussed yesterday. And today what we are going to do, we are going to get into the deeper understanding of what exactly an ABAP is and how the system used to be and how we get into the system and how we give the username and password, who is the people gives us an credentials for us to make into SAP logon and then what we do inside it. We'll go into a brief lecture about this in a couple of minutes. So let's get started. I hope my screen is visible. Like I'll just get into the PPT now. Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yes, Karan.
Okay, cool. So now, so if you can see, now what is happening is like we are into like SAP system right now. So the current one which we are doing right now, yes, just a minute. Yeah, okay. So now let's get into the system first. So the software which supposed to install to get the SAP into our system is basically it's a licensed software. And as and when we do that, it supports a few of the RDBMS like RDBMS such as SQL Server, Oracle, Informix, DB2 as I mentioned yesterday. So the same story is getting repeated here. And the GUIs which are supporting are Windows 95 XP, NT, Windows 3.1 because there are certain limitations which are being taken like to install the SAP software. Those are mentioned here. Windows 95 XP should be your system operating system, and then like Macintosh is also okay for that. And SAP uses the standard communication protocols like TCP/IP, CPIC for the network, and SAP ECC presentation interface behaves very similarly to any other typical window application. It's just a kind of simple applications which we used to see in day-to-day life. So that would be much more similar to what SAP does here in this context. It's almost similar. There is nothing like much difference as you can find out in the SAP GUI screen as well. And the first screen that you are came across in the SAP system is SAP logon screen. Okay. So as and when you get into the system, so the first screen which you get into this is SAP logon screen. So if you can see, this is the SAP logon screen, wherein you give the username and password. Okay. So username and password. So this is where. So when you get into the industry, when you get into any project actually, so this username and password will be provided by you by basis team. So your manager or lead request user credentials for your ID. So as and when you get into the any kind of industry, any kind of company, so first they'll create a ID for you. So based on that ID, basis team will create a username and password. I mean user credentials to you for a specific system actually. Okay. So the specific system in the sense like the system landscapes, I'll explain you in a while. But before that, like what you have to understand is the user credentials will be provided to any of the developer by basis people. So basis people will create user credentials to you exclusively with regards to the system. So that means for every different system, you have a separate logon credentials. In some cases, there might be the same credentials which work for all the systems as well. Okay. So this is the first logon screen wherein you get the credentials from your manager or from your lead through an email, and you enter the username and password. Okay. And then once you get into that, so these are all the things which I've just mentioned. And there is something called as language. If you can see the language. So why language as mentioned here? See, basically SAP software is a German based one. So SAP is a German company wherein they will be using the German software. So when we are using the German software, basically what used to happen is Germans has built the software for themselves with their own language, German language. So in such cases, basically they will be logging into their particular system, and they will be using according to their own language. So you have a keyboard as well here for their laptops actually. So when you work for any German company, you have the laptop keyboard as well here, German keyboard or an US keyboard. So like that, they have a language here. So when you choose the language as EN English, and that's when it gets into the language EN. So basically our basic language or basic software language with regards to the license as concerned would be English language only. But they have an option of choosing that to a language specific thing as well, and that is German. So they can choose the German language and they'll get into that German language system as well. There is nothing much difference with the system level. Everything would be one in the same. Just that the headings or something, whatever it is there in the system would be visible when you choose the English language. Else, if you choose the German language, then it would be a German language. That's it. Okay. And after entering all the fields like client user and password, after entering all the fields, you press enter, then it will take you to the main screen called SAP Easy Access. So this is SAP Easy Access, which I've showed you yesterday. So I'll be showing you again today. So this is SAP Easy Access. What SAP Easy Access contains? So when SAP Easy Access contains, it will get different screens when somebody logs on, depending on the default settings of the user master record. That is, if user is a developer, then the screen which is he often works on editor screen, and going directly to the screen. If the system administrator set screen for the user, that means this particular screen, whatever you are seeing here, it varies, depends on the user who logs in. That means for a functional user, it would be of different transactions which have been lying here. And if he is a developer, then the folders which are lying here might be different. Or if he is an administrator, so that means it would be a different. Who is administrator here? The basis guy is an administrator here. For him, all the roles would be different for him. So that means the easy access screen would be something different. If he is a developer, most probably this would be the screen which is appearing for him. And if he is a functional consultant, there might be another screen which is appearing there actually. Okay. So depends on the ID, or depends on the language, or depends on the module which he works on. SAP user will have a different screen which will be enabled here. And that would be taken care by basis team. We don't need to bother about it. Okay. And then the next screen, main feature of ECC Windows follows. ECC stands for Windows elements. Stand window elements behave exactly the same as any other standard window application would, like minimizing a screen. No, this is quite generic. So that means like when you want to minimize a screen, what you do? You just get into this particular stage and click on this particular minimize button and you do, right? So the same screen as SAP behaves. So here also you can able to just go into here and then click on that particular minimize option. Or if you wanted to cancel something, you just need to just click on the cancel button. Or if you wanted to adjust the screen length or something, then you can able to click on this. So it will adjust it. So the same way as general Windows screens behaves, right? It's the same screen SAP also behaves actually. And there are two things. One is a menu bar, one is a standard toolbar. So if you can see here, so this is a menu bar, menu, edit, favorites, extra, system help. This is a menu bar. And this is a standard toolbar which is provided by SAP for us. So which contains all the, what I can say, buttons over here. So this is a find button, this is a find next button, this is a print button, this is a back button, or this is an exit button. So this is I will tell you what are these two actually. And these are all like next, 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 like that actually. And this is continue button. Okay. And next, see if you can see here, exit, find next, last page, cancel, first page, help, print, previous page. So all these buttons are enabled in this particular screen. Okay. Okay. Next, application toolbar. The next part of the screen contains icons mostly common used by the particular task or a transaction. And there is one more called a status bar. It's a bottom line of the screen. So bottom line of the screen contains status bar. See, if you can see here, actually, this is a status bar. So what is the screen and the screen name and the client number and the user ID, all these things would be appeared here in the status bar of it. Okay. I'll show you everything practically in the system level in a couple of minutes. I'm just taking you to some theoretical concepts so that you'll get an idea. When I take you to the system, you exactly have to match whatever it is there in the PPT. Okay. So now working with user sessions. So it is very important. Like what happens is like when the user is existing, like when the user is accessing one particular session. So this is called a session. Actually, when user is accessing one session and he wanted to get into another session immediately without disturbing the existing session, then there will be a button here in this case. This is one of the button. So when you click on it, actually what will happen is it will take you to the next session by keeping this session as it is. That means you're not going to disturb this session at all, and you will be getting into another session wherein you place your other transaction code and you get into another screen like that. Okay, so that's a possibility you have it. And transaction code. What exactly is a transaction code? Yesterday I showed you about the transaction code. I just give a glimpse to you to make you to understand or familiar with the term transaction code. So what is transaction code? So the CCC system provides an alternative and efficient way of selecting menu options for moving around the task and functions of the SAP by using the transaction code. That means whenever you wanted to go into the any kind of operation within the SAP screen, then the one which takes you to that particular operation or task is a transaction code, I mean to say. So transaction code is something which would be a kind of just a code which is enabled for you to take you to the next screens. There are different transaction code exists in SAP level with regards to the functional, with regards to the basis, with regards to the technical. So there are different transaction code which exists in SAP. For individual developer or administrator or the functional people, the transaction codes might differ actually. Depends on their use cases or depends on the work they do in the day-to-day life in SAP level. So the transaction code might differ actually. So technical transaction codes are different, functional are different, administrative transaction codes are different. So what exactly this transaction code does? So this transaction code gives you a kind of what I can say, a screen, completely new screen, wherein you go and do the task which is assigned to you, or go in the task which can be performed by you. Okay, so these transaction codes are bunch in SAP level. I mean, there are a lot of transaction codes which have been appearing there actually. One moment. Okay, so there are a lot of transaction codes which are there in SAP as of today, and depends on the module the transaction code differs. As I mentioned, like SD module, sales and distribution module contains a transaction codes. Materials management contains different transaction codes. FICO contains a different transaction codes. When it comes to basis, so basis contains some admin transaction codes, and ABAP contains certain transaction codes where you develop a program, you open a table, you create a functional module, you create an OData service. So there are different transaction codes for each of the tasks. Okay. And when you get into the transaction code, when you want to keep the session as it is, and when you want to get into the transaction code, you put in the transaction level in this screen, here you put /O. That means /O you keep and you get into a new transaction code. When you want to get into the same screen and when you want to get into a new transaction code from the same screen, you put /N. Okay, I'll brief you here. Now, what I'm trying to say is T code. So I'll send you this notepad as well for your reference later on. Okay, T code as I mentioned. So when you want to stay in same session and would like to open another T code, then you have to use /N. Okay. For example, I want to open VA01 transaction code when I'm in SC38. Okay. I'm already in SC38 transaction code. I would like to open VA01. Then Then what I should do? /n VA01. Understood? So I'm already in SC38. I would like to open VA01, then /n VA01. Okay. So next thing, I'm in SC38. I'm in same session, and without disturbing the existing session, I would like to open a new T code. Then it should be /o example. I'm already in SC38 T code without disturbing it. That means SC38 T code screen remains the same without disturbing it. I would like to open VA01 in separate screen. Then it would be /o VA01. Understood? /o VA01. This is very, very, very important. Why? Because I'm stressing and writing here the same points repeatedly is when you get into the system. So the first thing what you do is this one only. /n/o. You need to find out the difference between these two. So that's the reason I just mentioned in a words so that you can remember forever actually. So that's the reason I mentioned like this. Okay. I'll show you this thing in practically in the system level, but just for the theoretical concept, I just explained you about it. Okay. And now let's move on. This is done. Now, technical transaction codes, functional transaction codes, and then admin transaction codes. As I mentioned earlier, just now, there are different transaction codes with regards to the modules which have been there in SAP as concerned. So technical transaction codes. So these are all transaction codes. SC11 ABAP dictionary, SC16 data browser, SM30 general table maintenance, SC38 ABAP editor, 37 function builder, 41 menu painter, screen painter, object browser, SC24. For now, you don't need to understand anything out of it. I'll explain you each and every pinpoint clearly and detailedly going forward. So don't worry about it. Just go with the flow for now. So these are all the transaction codes. And when with regards to the functional, so don't assume that only these transaction codes are only for the developer. No. There are certain other transaction codes as well. So, but they just mentioned here for your reference, just few transaction codes. Okay, but these are all really important transaction codes. Every day-to-day life of an ABAPer deals with these transaction codes only. Okay, and coming to the functional. So as I mentioned, there are different functional modules and functional consultants appear in the industry. So for the material management module, MM01, MM02, MM03 for create, change, and display. Vendor create, change, vendor change, display vendor, XK03, XK01, XK02, ME21, ME22, ME23 for purchase order, create, change, and display. And the good news here is actually we don't need to remember a few of the transaction codes one by one with regards to the functional actually. So there is an advantage actually. Let's take an example. In the functional transaction codes, what you used to do is, let's take an example. I wanted to create a sales order. Okay. So VA01 is the transaction code for sales order. I want to change the existing sales order, VA02. I want to display the existing sales order, VA03. That's it. Okay. Let's take an example. I wanted to create a purchase order, ME21N. I wanted to change a purchase order. Can you guess what is the transaction? ME22N. Okay. And then if I wanted to change the display the purchase order, ME23N. That's it. Okay. So it's quite easy to remember it. Okay. I want to create a billing document, VF01, VF02 for change, VF03 for display. I want to create a maintenance order, IW31, IW32, IW33. Simple. Simple. So for creating any of the functional transactions, create, change, and display varies with the number actually. Every time you don't need to remember a lot of things like this. Okay. But it is not a job of us actually. So, but when they told us to create a document and they just give a test case to create a document from the technical perspective, we don't just code it actually. We just also do some unit testing. So in such cases, remembering these T codes would be much more beneficial for us actually. Okay. So create, change, and display varies with all the transaction codes, but the numbers remains the same. Like if you can see 123, 123, 31, 32, 33, 21, 22, 23, like that. It depends on the transaction code which they mentioned to us actually. That's how it is. Okay. I hope this is clear. And we'll go with the next one. So sales and distribution module. And these are all the things which are there in the sales and distribution as well. I mentioned. And getting help in the required system. So there is a help which is already provided by SAP, which a kind of documentation or a kind of help site for us actually directly. So I'll show you where exactly we need to press on it to get the help, okay, in the system level. Okay, logging off. When you wanted to log off, what you do is actually we just click on the exit button over there, or if you can see slash and ex, that will take out to the SAP system. That will take you out to the SAP system. Okay, so let's get into the system and see everything in practical mode. Okay, any questions till now? Any questions till this part?
Yes. So you are using GUI, right? What if somebody is using Fiori front end? So all these things would matter. Same, I mean, all this
No,
transaction code would be
Theory is
applicable.
completely different because Theory has some apps over there, right? So that is different actually. When it comes to GUI, this is different and that is different. So, but basically some of the transactions which you can, sorry, some of the transactions which you usually use in the Fury also kind of tiles there actually. They call it as a tiles over there. But that
Mhm.
also has the GUI screen which is enabled over there. Because Fury has the capability to give the GUI transactions as a tiles over there. So, but Fury is completely a different topic altogether when it comes to GUI.
So all these ABAP things, what we're going to learn, do they get applicable on Fury as well?
That's what I'm saying. ABAP is different. Fiori is different. Fiori comes with the UI5 UI5 framework level actually. So UI5 what it does is actually it creates an apps and from the app it creates a tile and put it in the portal called as Fiori Launchpad. So you get
Mm-hmm.
all the apps over there. But when it comes to the GUI, it's a licensed software and also within the license you get all these screens. So Fiori screens are completely different from these screens. But as I mentioned, there are certain transactions like VA01 or VA02 or VA03. When you want to configure these transactions as an apps in the Fairy Launchpad, there is a separate topic like Fairy Launchpad configuration. Like Fairy administrator people will do that actually. They'll configure these particular transactions as a fairy tiles so that in the Fairy screen, you will get these screens enabled over there.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from anyone or can I move forward?
No, Kiran, not from my side.
Thank you so much. So I'll just get into the system now. Give me a moment. I'll just open the system and share my screen again. Good. Our system is open. Just a moment. I'll share my screen once again. So let me know when you can able to see my screen. So the system is open. I'll just get into log into the system once again. And the credentials are in the system level. I'll just minimize it. So then here they mention it. So welcome 1 to 3. It's open it, but okay, that's fine. So paste the password. It's okay. Fine. So now whatever I've explained you theoretically till now in the PPT, I'm just explaining you again in the system level. So the first thing is, so this is an application toolbar which is provided by SAP, and this is a menu bar. And if you can see this, I'm a developer. So what are all the transactions which I usually do will be appeared in the left hand side of the corner. So if you can see SE11, SE12, SE38, SE11. So these are all the transactions which this developer usually does. I mean, King. So like King, you have a different username credentials which are there for you actually as and when you get into the system. Basis or administrator people will create that for you exclusively. And based on that, you can able to log on, and whatever the favorites which are appear here actually, which will be appeared there. Okay. And then let's get into the menu topic. So the menu bar contains all these things: user menu, SAP menu, business workplace, create role. So these are all things we don't need to bother about it. Basically, administrator people will take care of it to create role or create SAP menu like that. And we just have to just go through these and see whatever it is there in the system level. Okay, system, help, add-on. Okay, now this is an application toolbar wherein if you can see, so this is print button, this is find button, this is find plus, and this is a first page, second page, next page, like that. And this is the one which I'm telling you. So as I mentioned, I'm in this screen. I'll go to a transaction called as SC38. Directly, I'll paste the SC38. Okay, I'm into SC38. Now in SC38, I wanted to get into VA01 without disturbing this SC38. That means this SC38 should remain the same, and I want to get into the other system. Okay, and I want to get into the other system. Okay, so I want to get into the other system. So what I should do here? So /o VA01. /o VA01. Is it open? Something is wrong. One moment. Yes, so VA01 was open. Okay, if I want to go back, I just click on back. Okay, I'll just click on cancel again. So this is one more time it got open because I gave twice. Okay, so I'll just cancel it once again. See, I'm into C13. Now, I'll just open once again. /o VA01. When I give /o, what will happen? I will not be disturbing the existing ABAP editor screen. I'm going to the next screen. See, this is the screen. If I go back, this is a ABAP editor screen. That means the existing screen is not getting disturbed or it is not going out, and I'm going into another screen. That means other transaction like BA01. Okay. Now, I want to keep this screen. I want to keep this screen like I want to get out of this screen completely. I don't want to see this screen again, and I want to get into new transaction. Now, what I will have, what I have to do? /n BA01. Understood. So /n VA01. Now I got into this particular case. So that means VA01 transaction was open. Now, if you wanted to go back, see, the ABAP address screen was nowhere now. Understood. /n/o. Understood the difference? In the existing screen, when you wanted to open a new screen without disturbing the existing one, then you use /o. And if you want to take out the existing screen and get into a new screen, then you use /n. Understood. So you can use the same thing here when you wanted to open a new screen, not even /o here. There is an option which is enabled here, new GUI window, new GUI window. Okay. So if you click on this new GUI window, this opens another screen for you. If you go back, the same screen will appear. Understood. Okay. Now, this is what I'm talking about. Help, help. So click on help. See, it gives some documentation for you. It gives some documentation for you. SAP has predefined documentation, which is generated for you. See, it contains everything. /n, unsaved changes are lost without one, to end the current transaction, to delete the current transaction, to generate a session list, to end the current transaction, return to the starting menu, to log off from the system, without a confirmation prompt, like that. So there are different things which are already provided to you in the command field, and whatever it is there, SAP has provided a kind of documentation for you to make you to understand what exactly the system behaves and what you do in the system. Okay. Now, let's get into this settings. If you click on the settings, there is something called as options. In these options, you have different themes. So now whatever we are seeing is Blue Crystal theme. SAP has provided different themes for you. SAP Signature theme, SAP Corba theme, Belize theme, Classic theme, like that. If you want, you can change the themes as well. If you click on change, click on apply, click on OK, and just get out of the system once again. And now open it once again. Now see, the theme got changed, right? So it's a completely new theme altogether now. That means SAP has given a provision for any of the user to change the themes over there. Okay. And if you go here, the settings button was not enabled here. So somewhere in this, we have settings. We have to see where exactly it is because we are into next theme. So somewhere we have to check the settings. Okay. Customize local layout. We'll see options. Yes. Okay. Theme settings, font settings. If you want to change the fonts, you can able to change the fonts. Branding, custom colors. We don't need to bother about all these things because it's a job of basis people to do all these things actually. So if you specifically want to have a separate theme over there, then you can able to come here and you can able to change it. Nobody denies you whatever you're changing it here. That's not that's not a problem at all. Okay. Now let's get into an important topic: system status. So if you can see here, actually, there is A4H lying here with something called as 400. Okay. ECC, HANA, INS, something it is there actually. We'll see what is that. We click on this particular arrow and now all the details which are appearing here are the important details for us. What is the system? A4H and client 400, user king, program, SAP LSM, something. So that means this entire screen is nothing but a program for you, which is already created by SAP and given to you. Okay. And transaction, response time, interpretation time, something. Okay. Now, these are all okay. I wanted to see what is the database and what is the port name, host name, all these details inside the system. Then what you have to do, you have to get into the menu option system, status. Okay. Now, this is where, if you can see, this is a transaction and this is a program which is lying in this screen, behind this screen, and license expiration, installation number. Okay, when you install this SAP licenses software in your system, installation number would be available over here, and database. Yesterday I mentioned DB2, Oracle, MySQL. How do we know which database it is actually? I parked that question there itself and I told you that this is what I'm going to show you. But this is what I'm going to show you now. So this is a database system. What is database? HDB, HANA database. Okay. And release, there is a release version for this actually. And host, ECC HANA, schema, user, owner. These are all some settings with regards to the administration console, administration user. Okay. But what we have to find out here is actually the important point. What is the database with which your system is being prepared? So when you go to any of the organization, the first thing what you have to notice here is actually database. Okay, with data, which database these people are using here? Is it an S4 HANA system or not? How do you find out? You can ask anyone, they can able to answer it. But if you wanted to find out yourself, then you get into here, this stage. So how do you get into here? System, status, and here, if you come down, there is something called as database system. This is called as HDB. If it is HDB, then what does it indicate? It's a S4 HANA system. It's a S4 HANA system. These days, most of the users are using S4 HANA systems. But few users are there, like they haven't migrated their contents to the S4 HANA system yet. For them, it would be like Oracle or MySQL or DB2. Some other database would be available here. Okay. So that is how it is. And the next important thing which we have to notice in this context is product version. So that means you have taken the license software from SAP AG and you wanted to see which product it is getting installed in your system and which product they have installed in your system. In such cases, you want to see the details, then click on this binocular option. So if you click on it, see, this is what you have to just, it is not mandatory to remember it, but if somebody asks you which version you are, what is the package you have been, some people will ask that actually. In such cases, you should be able to answer in which version you are, which SAP system is installed in your system, like in the Citrix and all, they'll be asking it. So if you can see, most important thing which we have to notice is S4 core component, which is important for us. Rest all components would be defaultly installed according to the installation. And this one is the S4 core component. That means this S4 HANA version, whatever we are doing here, actually, it's an S4 core component which would get installed. Okay. So if it is 101, that would be the latest release. We can assume that is the latest release. Okay, so there are other applications or frameworks which will be installed by defaultly by SAP S/4HANA system, so that we don't need to bother about it. But there are a lot of components which we can see here actually. So HR there. So what does it indicate? These are all HR related components, and there are something EA related components were there. These are all like components. So component contains many of the individual components, and that contains all the modules which will get installed in the package. So when you install it, actually what will happen? Those all components would get automatically installed in your system. That is what is the understanding. So if you can see FICA, insurance, ISH, yesterday I just mentioned IS utilities, IS retail, those are all industry specific solutions. That means, let's take an example. There is a tele manufacturing or kind of telecommunications industry which is in US actually. They wanted to implement SAP for them actually. When they take SAP ECC for their need, they can't able to get all the industry specific solutions. They can't able to get it. They have to take that particular industry specific solution as a separate package with regards to the installation as concerned. In such cases, what they do, they'll take the S4HANA system directly these days. So in such case, what used to happen, if you can see, ISUT, utilities or telecommunication. Yesterday, I mentioned this point clearly that with regards to the industry, SAP is attracting each and every customer according to their needs. So what will happen? They don't even just provide the software for their need, but they want to fulfill the needs of the specific industry. When it comes to retail, when it comes to oil and gas, when it comes to media, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to insurance, they have a different transactions altogether where they does their job and save the data or do the transaction level job for them. So for them actually, so to fulfill their requirements and needs, SAP has integrated all these industry specific solutions into one box, which is called as SAP S4 HANA. Okay. So this is a quite very brief introduction about SAP S4HANA. If anybody asks you the question, you can straightforwardly say that SAP S4HANA is a kind of integrated software with a lot of components, which SAP usually provides as a separate components when you install ECC. So that means SAP S4HANA comes with everything with irrespective of the industry. It almost comes with each and every industry's needs to fulfill their particular needs over there. Okay. So when it comes to the next one, so you can see public sector. Public sector is something, PRA is something they will be going on, oil, media, healthcare, insurance, FSCA extended, recruiting, okay, portfolio and project management, enterprise extension, public services. There are a lot of modules which are there in SAP. It's not about only SD, MM, and FICO, lot of modules. Guys, SAP is just evolving like anything. You might not even realize it to what extent SAP is going to, fulfill the customer needs. It is fulfilling each and every need of a customer right now. So that is the main reason which I mentioned this point as 96% of the customers in the world are SAP customers. Are SAP customers because they don't want to lose any of the customer not to fulfill their needs actually. So they are in a process of doing it, and they have been integrating many of the other softwares as well recently. So let's take an example, as I mentioned, like that Qualtrics is a company which does the surveys for us. Is that the surveys? It's actually kind of some European based industry. So as and when the SAP observed that the Qualtrics is running very like hugely, and it is fulfilling the needs of each and every customer in European continent, what they did is actually they just acquired the company, Qualtrics company. They paid some amount and they acquired the company and made it as an SAP Qualtrics. So the site remains the same in the Qualtrics level, but when the SAP acquisition has happened, so all the things, whatever there are there in the Qualtrics till that time has become the license now. So it's a licensed version because SAP has locked that thing actually. So Qualtrics has become SAP Qualtrics. Ariba has become SAP Ariba. Success factors, SAP Success factors. Business objects, SAP Business objects. Concur, SAP Concur. That means It is always in a position to fulfill the needs of the customer, regardless of the industry where the customer resides. Now, basic question. So, Kiran, I'm into a healthcare domain wherein I've been in a company called as Westnarch Pharma. So, will this SAP S4HANA system, which you are showing it to me, will it fulfill my needs? Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Why? How do you say that? See, there are some industries which runs on a different healthcare domain as well. So, if you can see ISH, it's an industry-specific solution which is exactly matches to your needs for healthcare needs. That means you can execute your specific transactions with regards to the healthcare along with the existing transactions which is already provided defaultly by SAP software. Got it? Now, there is a company called as Max Bupa Life Insurance. So one student came to me like, Kiran, I'm into a project called as Max Bupa Life Insurance actually. So will your SAP S4HANA system fulfill my needs? Yes, of course. When you get into the SAP S4HANA system, you have a component called as insurance. So they'll ask me, how do I make sure that the SAP S4HANA system fulfill my needs? So how do I ensure that, or how do I make sure that I have to give the proper answer to my client, whether my system will fulfill his needs or not? Then the quickest answer you can give is you just get into the system like this, system status, and go to the product details, product version, get into here and see whether the product versions installed software components contains these industry specific solutions or not. You have to make sure that these should be available within the system level. Then only you can able to say your customer that yes, your business needs are being fulfilled by SAP S4HANA. Understood. So guys, you won't even get this kind of lecture anywhere in industry. I'll bet you for that because I've been working in SAP S4HANA since 9 years. Okay. I know each and every pinpoint of SAP S4HANA. Okay. So I worked in insurance domain. I work in healthcare domain. I work in media domain, and I work in IS oil and gas domain as well in the implementation perspective. So they have lot of business scope in it actually. And those guys are like, they have been fulfilling their customer needs since a long time. And as and when SAP S4HANA comes into picture, they are also having some lot of doubts in their mind, hundreds of doubts in their mind, whether this system really fulfill our needs or not. But once they get into the system, they have been quite a happy people. Like they were been running the transaction as easy as such because they are into a different softwares previously. Some people, there is a company called as Baker and Hughes when I work for that client actually. So these people are in JD Edwards previously. And when they are in JD Edwards, they have a very, a different kind of UI which has been appeared there. And they were into S4HANA right now. And when the implementation has happened in the Baker and Hughes, those people are really happy because the screens or the transactions which they have been using already in the ECC system are the similar transactions which they have been using for the oil and gas as well now. So they are quite happy there actually. So that's how. So when you are using SAP software and when you wanted to get into your industry specific solution, which is already integrated to it actually, so your job will be more easy actually. Your job will be more easy. That's how it is. So SAP S4HANA is such a important and a strong recommendation for any of the customer in the industry so that they can fulfill their needs easily along with the existing business process which they're already performing on. Okay. So I hope you get a clear picture on what SAP S4HANA system does and what are the components which are being there in the system. Are there any questions? Okay.
Okay, then understood.
Thank you. So if there are no questions, then I'll get into the next topic. The next topic is our SAP ABAP introduction. Okay. As I already given quite a few points with regards to the introduction, I just wanted you to take out to the introduction level to the next, introduction to the next level. So the first thing which I have to make you, understand is the topics which we are going to cover as part of this ABAP. Okay. So what exactly an ABAPer does first, the roles of an ABAP developer, I'll just mention. I think I've already mentioned in the previous class. I just reiterate, I think, yes, the role of an ABAPer, I just mentioned it. But with regards to the transaction codes and the topics which I'll just mention, okay? So first thing is we develop reports. Next thing is we develop tables. We develop interfaces. This interfaces section contains BAPIs, IDOCs, okay, and then web services, okay. These are all the interfaces. And then what we do interfaces, conversions. So conversions, let's take an example. Just a minute. Conversions, just a minute. Sorry. So where I'm like, yeah, okay. So I'm here actually. So conversions. So conversions in the sense, what is the topic of conversions? First of all, I'll explain you briefly later on, but just to give a glimpse of it actually. Your system is a whatever you're doing in the business process are like Excel files, and you are just uploading the data to to some database in the previous in the previous cases in the business processes, I can say. Now you took the license of SAP and you wanted to upload the same data to SAP as well. Now there are different techniques like conversion techniques like BDC, LSNW, wherein what you does is actually you take the flat file and you get the data from there and you upload the data directly to the SAP. That means you get the material data wherein you have material master data like material name, industry sector, and then material type. All these basic details was there. You wanted to upload those details or the file contains number of records to SAP. So in such cases, what you do, you use these conversion techniques called as BDC or LSMW. BDC stands for Batch Data Communication, LSMW, Legacy System Migration Workbench. Okay. And forms. Forms. We have smart forms, Adobe Forms, PDF based forms. Okay. So these are all topics which we use to, and one more important topic, which is called as enhancements. Enhancement. This enhancements topics contains user exits, customer exits, baddies, enhancement, framework. Okay. So enhancement framework. Apart from these topics, whatever the other topics which you are going to cover as part of S4 HANA are OData services, OData services, and then CDS views, AMDPs, and 7.4 syntaxes. 7.4 syntaxes, which will be much more efficient for the recent next gen ABAP development. 7.4 syntaxes. If time permits, what I'll do, I'll just give you an introduction about BTP as well at the end. So I'll just take you to the BTP screen and I'll just show you what are the contents available over here. And these are all the things which I'm providing as part of this particular training. So I'll cover each and every topic in a brief, and you don't worry about anything as such. So once you get this training cleared, so you will be in a position to create all these things from your side very easily. Okay. So just what I'm requesting you guys is actually you just need to practice as and when I taught you something on the day actually. So if I, for an example, actually if I taught you some table creation, and once after a week if you try to practice it, you don't remember a lot of things in it actually. So there are certain navigations which are already being covered over there. So anyway, I'm providing the recordings, but that's okay. But anyway, if you go through the recording and prepare a running notes, and if you get into that system and try to practice it, that's when you will be able to remember it. Or if you don't do that kind of practice, I believe like you can't able to remember anything over here. Okay. So what's the main concern here is the practice actually. So the practice has to be there any of the time in your day, when you get at least half an hour or something, you get into the system and just do a practice over there. Okay, that's what I wanted to convey. So these are all the topics which we are going to cover as part of SAP S4HANA training here in this case. So ABAP with S4HANA is what ABAP, HANA ABAP is what our training name is actually. And sorry, SAP ABAP HANA training. So previously, a couple of years back, actually, it was just an ABAP training. But based on the recent needs of the developers actually in the industry, everybody was expecting HANA to be part of their ABAP training as well. Okay, so that's the reason we included ABAP HANA training, HANA as well. So I myself covering these topics exclusively for you. And OData services creation from the scratch will create, and the CDS views from end to end will be creating, and AMDPs also, and 7.4 syntaxes. BTP, I'm just giving a kind of what you can complimentary session for you to make you to understand what exactly BTP and about it. Okay. So any questions till now?
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
Some might be stupid, but so all these things, right? Report table interfaces,
Yeah.
conversion,
Yeah.
and again, like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm.
Fury is just a front end, right? It's a different kind of a front end, correct? It's a web front end,
Yes,
correct?
exactly.
So all these things, what we're doing, report table interfaces, conversion forms, management,
Mm.
do the same thing happens in Fury as well? Are they different than GUI?
Okay. So I'll tell you brief. I'll just give you a kind of introduction. Just bear with me for 5 minutes. I'll clear your
Sure.
doubt in such a way that you will remember this forever. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
now, in the recent past, 2007, SAP doesn't have web development at all. Okay. They don't have web development. Okay. I'll just explain you as a story now. So they don't have web development till that time they were being using ECC. I think 2007 or 2004. I don't believe that year actually. So 2000, let's assume it's a 2005 or 7. So they are just doing the web development. There will be no web development at all. That would be just an ECC system. Whatever I'm showing you here, it's only the screen they have been using it that time.
Uh-huh.
After that, what happened is SAP has come up with one of the new introduction or new invention called as WebDyn Pro. WebDyn Pro, okay? WebDyn Pro, which does the web application development in GUI itself. Web development. What is meant by web development here? They were creating some web screens, web-based screens, okay? Web-based screens with an URL integrated to it. That means, as and when they prepared something in the web-based screen, they designed the web-based screen, you get a URL at the end of the day. That means HTTPS slam something like that. They used to get a web URL at the end of the development of a web dentro component. They'll call this component. We call it as a web development for our understanding. Okay. Later on, when you develop a web-based screen, it is not just like that. You give the URL to the other people and you have to use it, because SAP is a licensed software. So within the license, if you want to take the URL and give it to the other people in the outside world, can they be used it directly? Can they use it directly? No, they cannot use it, because it's up to your system where you prepare the URL. But that URL has to be in a generic way, right? That means the URL has to be in such a way that every customer in their own businesses, without having SAP access, also can able to use it. Correct? So that is the need. So in such cases, what happened? SAP has introduced a concept called as portal. Okay, what is that? It's a portal, SAP portal. SAP portal. So it's a module that type, SAP portal. So what SAP portal does? It does the web developments deployed into this portal. Okay, that means this portal is a web component wherein it places all the web developments which is developed by SAP through WebDentro components into that portal and show it to the end user as a launch pad. Understood?
Uh-huh.
As a launch pad. That is how it is actually, SAP portal. Now, in 2014 or 15, SAP has been constantly doing their R&Ds in all the aspects actually. 2013 or 14, SAP has introduced a concept called as SAP UI5 framework. Okay? SAP UI5 framework. What this SAP UI5 framework does? It also develops a web application, but it uses the generic softwares called as generic software called as HTML5 web development components like HTML5, and then like JavaScript, CSS. Based on this, SAP has developed a new framework called as SAP UI5 framework. Okay. So here also you are developing the web application. End of the day, you get the URL. That's okay. That's good. But where do you deploy? Where do you deploy? You don't deploy it in portal, right? Because you are now in the next step. So how do you deploy? So that is the reason SAP has introduced a kind of launch pad with their own launch pad called as SAP Fiori. SAP Fiori. So SAP Fiori is also a kind of is a kind of software wherein it contains a Fiori launchpad, wherein it contains all the applications lying in it. Applications lying in it. So you can ask me, what are all the applications which can be lying in the SAP Fiori launchpad? All the SAP GUI transactions can be can be used as a tiles. Okay, and custom applications, custom apps built by the UI5 developer. Next, standard applications prepared and developed and released by SAP. So these are all the things which will appear in the SAP Fiori in the Launchpad perspective. That means as and when you open the Fiori Launchpad, all these things will be appeared over there. Now, coming to your question. So reports, tables, interfaces, conversions, forms, enhancements, you don't do it in Fiori, you does it in GUI only. Okay. Fiori just contains the Launchpad and the tiles which has to be appeared here. Now, then what is the advantage I'll get with the Fiori? Let's take an example. Your functional people ask you to configure VA01 transaction in a Fiori time. In a Fiori time, what you do? In the Fiori Launchpad, you go there and you create a catalog, and then tile, put this VA01 over there, and there you go. You get a tile in the FLP with VA01 screen exactly matching to the GUI transaction. Got it. Exactly matching to the GUI transaction. So whatever the transaction we see it in GUI, the same transaction will be appearing there as well. Got it. So that means Fiori has the advantage of showing the launchpad content to the end user. You will be developing the custom applications, and then after developing the custom applications, end of the day, you have to create a tile and launch the application, whatever you develop as a Fiori tile only. So the portal was just replaced by one of the component called as Fiori along with the UI5 framework. That is the bottom line of the story. Got a clear picture now?
Yeah. So if my company is saying they're gonna implement SAP for HANA private cloud, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It
So
can
if
be
you,
Fiori
yeah.
and UI together, or it can be just UI, or it can be only Fiori.
No, there is again a difference. That's again a different story. So this is something like, mixing it up actually. So that is different. Actually, the terms are different. So when you place some term into the picture actually, so we have to get a story behind it actually. We have to understand the story behind it. Now you understood the story why SAP Fiori has come into picture, correct? Now,
Yeah.
I'll tell you the next story, which is called as a difference between public cloud and private cloud. Okay. So what is the difference between public cloud and the private cloud? Public
That
cloud,
same server is used by multiple people, multiple
exactly. So
companies, right?
public cloud, you get the license and that can be developed. You get a URL like this, blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
URL, and that will be given to SAP with the license,
Mm-hmm.
And as and when you get the license, actually you go to the system, type SAP blah, 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 HTTPS, blah, 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 and you get the system ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get the system ready. That means whatever the operations you wanted to do, you can do it. Okay, this is a public
Mm-hmm.
cloud. And this
Yeah.
public cloud will be with regards to the enterprise. That means, let's take an example. I'm implementing a SAP public cloud software for my company called as Shell. So Shell only can take care of the SAP's public cloud system. Now, the operations or the kind of admin job will be taken care by SAP itself.
Right. Yeah.
SAP itself. You don't need to bother about anything. Patches, upgrades, anything. If you have any question in the public cloud section, you can directly go and ask SAP. They'll give you whatever the question you ask, they'll give a perfect answer for you. Public cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Now
Yep.
come to private cloud, which most of the customers are moving. Private cloud contains SAP GUI plus SAP Fiori. That means both things will come. Now, how
Okay.
SAP GUI will come? How I open this SAP GUI? The same SAP GUI will come to you. That means you get a system like this in the Citrix level. You just have to minimize like this. And then once you get in the system, you have a HANA Studio which is installed. And there is a Fiori shortcut somewhere. I don't see here actually, but you will see a Fiori shortcut.
It's a link, right? Yeah, it's a link.
Yeah. So you double click on it and that's open the Fiori Launchpad page for you. That's it. And you get into the SAP logon like this. Like how I get into the logon. So you get a SAP logon system. That means both you have it in the private cloud system. Now, as and when SAP introduces S/4HANA, initially they introduced the public cloud and started advertising the public cloud. But at the end of the day, customers are more attracted to the private cloud actually. So the private cloud is the most selling component for SAP now. Most selling component. Almost like 90% of the customers have been attracted to the private cloud and they've been taking the license of the private cloud and they're using it for their industry. Yeah. Got it?
So my question is, as we are going private cloud, right? What this ABAP would be helpful for me,
Of course.
or
So
it is doubtful on my. It depends on my company whether they go with pure Fiori
it also depends. It also depends. That also I can say. But end of the day, for making the sentences, you need words, right? For getting the words, you need alphabets. You have to learn the alphabets and make the words and then make the sentences. That's how the process is, correct? So in the same way, first you need to learn ABAP. You have to understand the ABAP, and then you get into the Fiori, OData. First you learn the ABAP. Along with that, anyway, we are teaching HANA ABAP. So you don't need to learn separately HANA. And first HANA ABAP, and then Fiori OData, and then public cloud or private cloud. So this is the path here. Okay. So without learning ABAP, you can't able to do anything over here in this private cloud or public cloud because these are all integrated. And Fiori UI5 is a separate topic altogether because if you just learn this HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, that would be good enough to build applications. Till that point, you will be there. But Slok is one of the developer who does a UI5 framework here. Okay, so he does the job just till this part only. But when it comes to the application development with regards to complete full stack application, you have to learn ABAP because ABAP is the backend here in this SAP. So whatever the job you does with regards to the data sources creation or some kind of OData services creation, you have to know ABAP. There is no other option. So that means to know ABAP or creating a OData service, you need ABAP background actually. So you need all these things. So these are all step-by-step process, I can say, Hemant. Like first you need to get into all these topics, get some good understanding, then learn as per other topics which I taught you here actually, and then get into the Fiori UFF framework. That's a separate course altogether. And if you learn UFF framework, that would be like you will be a full stack developer. You know backend, you know front end. You develop applications, you develop data services. When you go to the integration, so you club all these two and you can build a full stack application on top of it. That's how it is.
Okay. And that conversions are used for the migration of the data, right?
Yeah, migration of the data. Because the problem here is actually many ways in many industries, you don't get UI for development as such. Many people are not interested to build apps for their purposes. They are happy with SAP GUI screens only. In that case, you will get all these topics very, very important actually. So these topics are very, very important. Let's take an example. As I mentioned, Backend Users is a company which has been using another software since a long time and they want to get into SAP. So they'll use the BDC software, BDC topic, and they'll upload the data from here to there. So that's how it is. It depends on the industry. But I believe like in by 2032, most of the companies will migrate it to private cloud for sure. For sure. They'll use SAP Fiori, SAP GUI both. By then, if you become a full stack developer, that should be more than enough. That should be more than enough. Okay. But to get into at least like this stage, I'm just giving a baby steps to you. How do you have to crawl and how do you get into a kind of walk and then like you run. So first you have to crawl and then you have to walk. You cannot run directly. So that's what I meant actually. So that's the reason I just mentioned all the ABAP topics first because ABAP is the only programming language in SAP which does the backend code for you actually. Okay. So when you know all these things, you will be in a position to do anything in the SAP market.
So
Okay.
when you talk about the backend code, give me an example what you build in a backend code so I
Yes.
can.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's take an example. I'll just give you a brief in the backend code what I
Just
done.
give me a small program you
Yeah, sure.
created as a backend code, so
Sure.
I could like
Yeah.
relate to my what I do,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
also
Yeah.
backend side.
There is a Fiori app which brings out purchase orders in the system. Okay. Purchase orders in the system. So purchase orders, we have to bring out a purchase orders. And Sloke is a front-end developer. He's developing it, and I'm a back-end developer. And he does UI5 application development. And he already did that. A UF application is ready now. And it has to integrate with the backend code. So what I do, I go with the OData service development. So in the OData service development, I go to transaction SCGW, create a project. In the project, I'll put all the entities, entity set, and then associations, navigation properties, navigations, and everything. And framework will generate classes for me. So I'll redefine the methods inside it. I redefine the methods inside the framework generated method and write my own logic, write my own logic to bring out purchase orders, purchase orders lying in the system. Okay. So OData service will be generating, last step is generate the URL which will be consumed, which will be consumed by front-end developer to integrate with his application. So Slope will integrate my URL, which is developed by using this particular process. And then with that URL, the app will be ready. And as and when they give the number like 1, 2, 3, 4 in the app, 1, 2, 3 in the app, click on go button. So that generate, that gives us 1, 2, 3, say purchase orders. This is a typical process where you does the backend job. This is all the backend job which you does in the ABAP system, OData service development. And this is a UF application where UFA developer will do that job for you. Clear?
So I'll give you an example like I built a few months ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then whether this is how ABAP would do in SAP as well. So we have our company wants to reduce on an inventory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they said, okay, if demand is less and we have more on hand, we don't want the buyers to be able to make purchase orders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a concurrent program is like a scheduled job which runs
Understood.
every day at a specific time.
Yeah.
So I checked in MRP saying that how much is the demand, how much we have on hand, like the future demand for next 6 months. And if it is demand is less than the on hand quantity, I change some attribute in a item master, right? So I removed it from purchasable, so the person cannot purchase it. And if demand is more and on hand is less, then it would switch on the flag yes, that attribute would be yes. So then the person would be able to place it on a purchase order.
Understood.
So that program I wrote in PL SQL runs every night, checks all the items and updates the flag.
Yeah.
Right. So this is how you would do that in ABAP as well, right?
Exactly.
These
So
kind of
whatever the
programs.
content program you have written there in that particular context, we will be developing the OData service here with all the necessary validations which you took it from there. Actually, I'll incorporate those validations in this OData service. And end of the day, I'll provide the URL to the front-end developer to consume. That will be there in the app level.
So why I need to provide the front end URL to app developer, right? It's an internal program which is scheduled job, right? So front
That is
end
different.
has
This is
nothing.
different. That is different. This is different. The process is completely different. So the way
Okay.
you develop in Oracle is completely different from the way we develop in SAP level. So that is completely different actually.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
process is the process might be. I mean, like the context should be similar, but the process which we does in SAP would be completely different from the way we does it in other softwares.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll get to know all these things while we are doing the OData services creation and all. But as I mentioned, right? So these are all the baby steps which you have to get into first, and then once you finish all these things, you will be in a position to create OData services from the scratch.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks once again. And since it is a demo session, we will be continuing with another demo session tomorrow, I believe. So, and then we'll kickstart the main sessions as and when the demo sessions gets over.
Okay.
Thank you so much, both,
Yeah.
and we'll meet again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thanks.